All right, everyone, it is Diana here with, hi guys. We have got Pam and Jennifer, Mandy, Michelle, Nan. If you guys could go ahead and mute yourselves, that would be great. I'm going to introduce myself. We're going to get started here in a little bit, just waiting to see if I need to admit. Oh, there are all kinds of people joining us here. Charlene's jumping in. So good to see you all. We'll get started in a few minutes. Like I said, sometimes it just takes people a while to get in the room, which is pretty cool. We are having spring weather here in Wisconsin, so I'm really happy. The snow is melting finally. So I know we'll probably get some more, but that's okay. It's just the way it is here. So I'm going to give it probably about 30 more seconds. As I'm doing the presentation, I'll probably be pausing just to let people into the room. So if you guys are not on mute, go ahead and mute yourselves. This is also going to be recorded. So once it's uploaded onto my computer, I will then download it and then put it in the group, Mind, Body, Beautiful. And then if you wanted to listen to it again, you can always listen to it, refer to it. It'll always be there for you guys. So, all right, perfect. You guys are doing great. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to get started. So the first thing I will do here is share my screen, because this is going to be a PowerPoint, okay? So move you guys off to the side. All right, can you all see that? Just kind of wave your hand. All right, perfect. I see you, Jennifer. Nice to see you in person. Okay, so we are going to get started. All right, here we go. All right, I'm so excited to be able to talk to you about menopause, because I'm sure the majority of you that are on this presentation are either heading into it, are in it, or already out. I am out of it. However, still feeling some of those symptoms, so maybe not quite yet. So we will get started. This is menopause. Does it cause weight gain? True or false? So we were going to answer that question for sure, and among some other things too. So I want to welcome all of you here. And as we go along, I may pause, like I said before, to allow other women in. So if I do that, just bear with me. This is, again, being recorded. So once I'm finished, it will upload, or it downloads, I think. And then I will download it and upload it into the group. It just takes a little while, so it might not be in until tomorrow. All right, so I'm going to just share a little bit about me. So I'm 55 years young. I think my husband must have added that, because I think I just said 55 years old, but mother of three. I have 3 grown kids. 2 boys and a girl, stepmom of 2 boys. I have 6 grandchildren and 1 more coming in August. That will be a girl. So I will have 5 grandsons and 2 granddaughters. So that'll be really nice to have another little girl. Been a nurse for over 30 years, which is amazing how fast the time goes. Certified personal trainer, nutrition certification, love talking about food, and I own Mind, Body, Beautiful, and then the program's Beautiful Over 50 underneath that, and Beautiful Over 40. And then I also own a brick and mortar, a building that is called Trimax Health and Fitness. And then I also have underneath that umbrella is Waukesha Fit Body Boot Camp. So a gym with some boot camp and things going on. And then this is over on the side, there's a picture that's from Christmas. We didn't have any snow on the ground, but that's my crazy family. So I just wanted to share a little bit about me with you guys. I'm sure you can probably relate. You probably have crazy families too. So the agenda. So we're going to cover these 5 points. What are the 3 phases of menopause? And it's not to make, this isn't to make anybody feel bad if you know all this, but sometimes it's nice just to review what those 3 phases are and where you might be in that process and what you might be experiencing with some of the changes and some, maybe some or all, or maybe none of those symptoms of that. The hormonal changes that take place. And then we will answer the question, if it does menopause cause weight gain? And we'll talk about aging, lifestyle, and genetics. And then I have some great news for you. So pausing to add someone in. All right, so let's get on with it. Sometimes my computer's a little slow. So, oops, it went backwards. Here we go. So 3 phases of menopause. That's where we're going to be starting. This is just a little diagram. We're not going to get into it at all, but it just shows you that there is a process to it. It's a long phase. There's 3 phases, and it can start anywhere in your 40s and go until late 50s. So it's not just a quick phase. You're in phase 1, 2, and 3, and you're done, right? It's a process. So, okay, there we go. And all women go through the 3 phases. So there's no exception. We all go through it. It's part of life. It's just the next phase in life. So there's perimenopause, menopause, and postmenopause. And so what exactly are they? So perimenopause is when your cycles will start to become irregular, and it usually happens around the age of about 47. So you'll start to notice those symptoms like hot flashes. There's other symptoms, we'll go through that. However, one thing is you can still get pregnant during this phase. I mean, how many of you, maybe it's happened to you, you're like, oh boy, how did that happen, right? So you still should be on birth control and those kinds of things, because that can definitely happen. That's why this crazy man is here, because yeah, so that is perimenopause. So the next phase is the actual menopause. And I gave a couple slides to this because this is probably where the majority of us are, and probably a little more postmenopausal too. So menopause actually starts around the age of 51. So I just said that perimenopause started at 47. So that's like what, 4 years. So this doesn't happen like within 2 years or 3 years. And it's happened when it happens naturally, like you didn't have any surgery, you didn't have cancer treatments, had to have a hysterectomy and your ovaries removed. If those things happened earlier, you will go through menopause, obviously at that point that you had that surgery or that problem or whatever it is. But when it happens naturally on its own, you're around the age of 51. So it can happen before you turn 40, and that's premature menopause. But honestly, when it happens to you, it's at the age that it actually happens to you. So it also depends upon genetics. So like talking to my mom, and she really started menopause up at about the age of 42, 43. And I was around that time too. So I'm postmenopausal. So it does depend on how your mom or your grandmother, what happened with them. So it can happen early, but most of us, it's around the age of 51. And you'll know for sure when you've gone a whole year without getting your period. So if you still are having types, then, some spotting or things like that, you're not quite there yet. And this is the point in menopause where your ovaries are no longer making estrogen or progesterone. So those levels are dropping. So estrogen and progesterone support making babies. And we'll talk a little bit about that too. All right. If you're not on mute, if you guys could do that would be just making sure everybody's there. Okay. So there is another, there we go. So I bet some of you are experiencing some of these symptoms. So mood swings, lower sex drive, low libido, hot flashes, sweating, racing heart at times, maybe some headaches, vaginal dryness and soreness, painful intercourse, and trouble sleeping. These are all symptoms and they're normal. This is what happens. So yeah, that doesn't sound like fun, does it? No, it's not fun. For me, I can speak to the hot flashes and the sweating at night was the most horrendous thing ever, to wake up in a pile of sweat. I did not like that at all. It obviously led to the trouble with the sleeping, and who wants to like be with their husband or partner when you're feeling like that? So that stuff's not going to happen. So those are some symptoms, and I'm sure some of you have had those. All right, and postmenopause begins when you hit that year mark from having that final period, okay? And once that happens, you have a label on you. You're postmenopausal for the rest of your life. And that's not a bad thing. That's a good thing. It's a good thing. You're through all the having the babies and all of the menopause symptoms, you're past that. And it's not a bad label, it's a good label. So I want you to put that in your head. Okay, it's an okay thing. So now we're going to talk about hormonal changes and what is going on in our bodies. So estrogen is one of the primary sex hormones, and along with progesterone fits into that, but estrogen is the big one. And it plays a role in our physical sex characteristics. So that's how we become a woman. It regulates our menstrual cycle, and also helps to maintain our bone strength, our skeletal muscles, or our skeletal system. And honestly, I didn't know this until I was doing some more research, that it regulates our cholesterol levels too. So very interesting to think about that too. So during menopause, and that's that stage or phase, I should say, where we're 51 years old. This is when those levels really drop off. The ovaries are no longer producing, which is okay. That's just a part of normal life. So it dips down substantially. So progesterone is another one of those hormones, and it works alongside estrogen. And that, like I said, it's about, fertility. And those levels decrease. One thing I wanted to point out, and I'll mention a little bit more as we go, but progesterone has been shown to benefit breast health, cardiovascular health, nervous system health, and most importantly, brain function. So one of the symptoms some women have is that brain fogginess. Does anybody have brain fogginess? And you just don't feel right, and you might be driving your car and you're forgetting things like, oh, you forgot your cell phone or whatever. You just have that. Think about progesterone at that point in your life. That's also dropping off. So to me, that really hit home, because you might have been one of these people that you had this great memory and things were clipping along, and then you hit this certain age and you're like, what happened? Your progesterone's dropping. So does that make sense? Kind of all those hormones, kind of those two especially. Those are the big ones, obviously. So we're going to be answering the question. So does menopause cause weight gain? All right, we should have a drum roll or something, right? All right, so I did a little bit more research on menopause. I didn't know there was an International Menopausal Society. So here's a couple statements. So they say hormonal changes alone, all by itself, don't necessarily cause menopausal weight gain. Okay. But instead, the weight gain is usually, so we're not done answering the question because we're not through part of the program here, but the weight gain is usually related to aging as well as lifestyle and genetic factors. So think about that too. So our hormones are going down and we're getting older. Some of us are less active. Some of us, our lifestyle has changed. We have early retirement. Some of us can do that. Our kids are growing up. We have grandchildren. So we're in this whole new phase. And then there's always genetics that play a part too. Okay. So one thing that studies have found is the way that fat is deposited in our bodies, because we all have it, men, women, we all have fat, changes during menopause. And obviously that's due, like we talked about before, is that drop in the estrogen levels at that time, okay? So one other statement I wanted to make, we'll get back to this, the way that fat is deposited, but irrespective as to whether women do or do not gain weight around menopause, because some, we all go through it, some gain weight, some don't, but we do, every woman experiences a shift in where their fat stores go to their abdomen. And so you probably heard of the menopausal belly. All my fat's in my belly. Where did this come from? That kind of thing. So we know based on studies, and I'll get to that, that the fat deposits that we have changes and it shifts around. And that's because our estrogen and progesterone are dipping down, which is normal. This is all normal stuff. So there's this quote from a professor out of the University in Australia, of Melbourne, in Australia. And I'm going to read this to you because really listen to it. And if you want to take a screenshot, do that, because this really makes a lot of sense. So it is a myth that menopause causes a woman to gain weight. It's really just a consequence of environmental factors and aging which cause that. But there's no doubt that that new spare tire many women complain of after menopause, or kind of, as you're getting postmenopausal, is very real and is not a consequence of any changes that you have made. It's something that happens. But rather, it's the body's response to the fall in estrogen at menopause, and, like we just talked about, a shift of fat storage. And where that shift is coming from, it's the hips to the waist. Is anybody experiencing that? Yeah, right? So this is not something that you're causing to happen. This is a real thing. This does happen. Now you'll see some, when you look at some women, you're gonna say, well, that's not happening to them, but it is. It might be in smaller amounts just based on their size, their genetics, and all of that. So I thought this was really an interesting quote and makes a lot of sense. So she also notes, and we all know this, is an increase in abdominal fat does increase the risks of those diseases such as diabetes and heart disease. And one thing that's really scary is heart disease is the #1 killer of postmenopausal women. Kind of scary, very, very scary. So makes you kind of, that is happening. And so now what can we do to make it less and not make it any more than it needs to be? Okay, so one fact I wanted to put in here, because this is a myth as well, that estrogen therapy or hormone replacement therapy does not cause women to put on weight. I hear that once in a while, that women say, well, I was put on estrogen and now I gain all this weight. That is, it's been shown not to be true. There is some good evidence that hormone replacement therapy can prevent abdominal fat increasing after menopause. That it would be determined on your levels and how you're feeling at that time. And you can seek professional guidance with that as well, but don't think that you can't help yourself with some hormone replacement therapy. So there's always that option. I wanted to point that out because there's so many things out there that have been said to us, like back in the 80s and 90s, that really don't pertain, because there's been so many more studies on menopause. The reason why there's so many more studies is because the population is growing. So we're like at the tail end, or we may be, some of us, in that the boomers, the baby boomers. But so there's all this testing because our population, we have a big population in the world of baby boomers. So they're able to do the tests and talk to women and do all that kind of research, which is really cool too. So women going through menopause should begin to try and control your weight before it's a problem. So if you haven't been looking after yourself before menopause, start to do that now. I mean, even if you're in it, it's a good time to start now. You need to be thoughtful about what you eat and be more active every day. And so that will lessen those effects of that weight gain, or the shift of I shouldn't say weight gain, the shift of the fat stores where they go, is catching it at the time. It's kind of like menopause is kind of like how I determine, it's kind of like the marker of, if you haven't been active in eating well, now's the time to do it, because now you're in that where your metabolism slows down a little bit, the fat stores are shifting, your life is changing, your lifestyle is changing with how your kids are getting older, and you're focusing on different things, and you might be retired, and what are you going to do? And so it's like that marker in your life, like, oh, I haven't been doing anything, I need to start now before it's too late. Or if you have been doing it, great, keep it going, keep it going. So just a few little more comments there. So now I want to talk a little bit about, remember the statement about menopause does not cause weight gain. Really look at factors such as aging, lifestyle, genetics, and some other things that attribute to that weight gain. Remember, it's the shift of the fat cells that move up into that belly area. Okay, so let's dive into that. So aging is, nobody likes that word, aging, right? I don't want to get old. It's not old, it's aging. It's a process that everybody's aging. Even that 1-year-old is aging, right? You're going to be 2, 3, 4. So we are aging. Everybody's aging. But as you do get older, and it will happen to our kids and their kids, muscle mass does go down. It diminishes. Fat increases, right? So stores, fat cells get a little bit bigger. Losing muscle mass slows the rate at which your body uses calories. That's that whole metabolism. When you say I'm menopausal, my metabolism slowed down, blah, 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 blah. This is true. This does happen. But if you continue to eat as you always have, so if you eat donuts in the morning because you used to do that when you were 30 or 20, and you eat a lot at night before you go to bed, and you haven't changed some of those eating habits, and you don't increase physical activity, keep moving, walking, all those kinds of things, you will gain weight. That's how it is. And men too, because their hormones fluctuate and change, specifically their testosterone. And so if they don't change, that happens to them too. It's not just us women. Genetic factors may play a role. So if your parents or other close relatives, so if you look at your grandparents, aunts, sisters, and if they carry a lot of extra weight around the abdomen, you're likely to do the same. However, their genetics really only accounts for like 25% of it. The other 75% of it is what you do. It's what you eat. It's your activity level. There are certain things as genetics that we can't control. Like maybe your bone structure, you can't control that. You can't change your bone structure. You can't change your eye color, those kinds of things, unless you wear the contacts. But you do tend to look or develop those same characteristics, but you do have some control over that as well. And I don't want you guys to use it as an excuse for poor or bad behaviors, because you can change those poor or bad behaviors. So that's like saying if your mom or your grandma, they're diabetic, well, then I'm going to be diabetic. Not necessarily at all. And if your mom or your aunt or whatever, if they're obese, well, I'm obese, that's because, and that's just the way it is. No, you have total control over what you put in your mouth and your activity level, and how you even think in your mind. So you have control over that. So other factors are lack of exercise, unhealthy eating, and not enough sleep. Sleep is super huge, and I can do a whole presentation on sleep and the good and the bad of that. But when you don't get enough sleep, and you probably have experienced this, I know I have, you snack more, and that leads to more calories. So then you're sitting in front of the TV, you're not really tired, you can't sleep, and then you start to binge on whatever there is, Cheetos, popcorn, ice cream, all of that. And so this has been shown to be very, very true, that if you don't sleep, this stuff happens. Not to mention the high cortisol levels that will happen to your body when you aren't sleeping and resting. Like I said, I could go on and on about sleep, but I'm not going to. So big news flash. Okay, so menopausal weight gain isn't inevitable. Okay. You can reverse the course by paying attention to healthy eating habits and leading an active lifestyle. Does that make sense? So we know menopause is going to happen to us. It happens to every woman. We know that the fat cells increase and they move around and they do like to settle in the belly area. That is, we just determined that. A lot of literature out there says that, but there's things that we can do to decrease it, right? And not let that get in our way, not let that become an obstacle to being who we want to be, becoming that woman that we want to be. Like, I describe it as crossing the bridge to that person that I want to become. So if I'm not feeling good about myself and I have 20 pounds to lose and I'm not sleeping and I'm not eating really well, where do I want to go? I have control over that. I have charge of my body. I can make those decisions and those changes and cross over that bridge to that person that I want to be over there. Or maybe it's somebody that you were 20 years ago and you want to get back to that. You had your kids, you have grandkids. Now you're like, I want to be the grandma that's out there playing around with them. Or I have kids that haven't had kids yet. They're going to have kids someday. I want to be that active grandma. I want my grandkids' friends to go, that's your grandma? I mean, how cool is that? So you do have control over it. So it's not inevitable that happens. Things shift. So how you ask, right? So how can you control that? Exercise, staying active, nutrition, changing things up a little bit. Change what you normally do. Mindset, changing your current belief system that hasn't been serving you. So we all have a belief system and a mindset that we grew up with. It's all of, it's what our parents taught us. It's how we learned in school. It's relationships, maybe past relationships, current relationships that have affected us. And we are the people who we've become because of that. And if it's not good and it's negative, we can change that. And if it's not serving you and getting to where you want to be in your next chapter, the chapter that you're heading into or you're in, we can change that. And so developing those positive lifestyle habits, making those changes. And hormone replacement therapy, right? There's nothing wrong with that. If you are struggling and you feel like your exercise is on point and you are eating like you're supposed to, and you're eating enough calories and all of that, there's nothing wrong with having a consult about hormone replacement therapy. Now, there are that's a whole nother webinar too about that as well, because there are certain conditions that you don't want to add additional hormones into your body. Could be some cancer treatments and things like that, or some autoimmune diseases and things, but that is something that you would talk to your practitioner about. And I can, if you have questions about that, I'm certainly more than happy to talk to you. And if you want me to do a little bit of webinar on what that looks like, I can certainly do that too, because that's what this stuff is all about. These are the things, though, that what I really wanted to point out, these are the things that we have ultimate control over, right? Do you guys agree? We have control over our activity level. We might need a little help with it. Like, I need somebody to motivate me, man, as I've got all this stuff going on. I need a plan of action. I need a course of action. I need accountability. I need someone to hold my hand and help me cross that bridge. And that's okay, because everybody needs somebody to help them. A supportive family, a supportive husband, a supportive whoever that might be. So these are the things that we can control, regardless if we're perimenopausal, in menopausal, or postmenopausal, or even years before that. Except when we're in our 20s and 30s, we don't understand perimenopause and menopause. Like, my mom talked about it, but I'm like, oh yeah, someday I'll be there, but I'm not going to worry about it now. You don't really realize it until you're actually there, and we're all here. And so now we got to do something about it, right? It's like, okay, now, yeah, here we are. And I used to shake my head like, okay, mom, but honestly, it is. And it's not like something that you want to use as an excuse. Oh, I'm menopause and that's why I am the way I am. Well, every woman goes through it. So, don't use that as an excuse. It is something that happens. It's normal, all of that kind of stuff. So that's stuff that we have to deal with, but we do have control over all these other things. We can't control the menopausal kind of stuff, but we can control all those other things. So, all right, that's really what I wanted to talk to you guys about. I hope you got something out of this. Like I said before, the replay will be posted in Mind Body Beautiful. If you have questions, the post, like I said, if it downloads really good tonight and behaves, and I put it in YouTube, and then I take that link and I put it in Mind Body Beautiful, I will get it out there tonight. Otherwise, it'll be there in the morning. But if you have questions, or if you want to get on a phone call with me and talk through, what do I do and how I can help you, I love to talk to you guys. I'd be more than willing to do that. You can just put in the comment below. I can put in my scheduling link, and we can just talk for a half an hour about, what should I be doing? And I'm stuck, and find out a little bit more about me, and I can find a little bit more about you. But I hope this was helpful. I'm so glad you're all here. And I look forward to all your comments and your questions. And I'll look forward to the next webinar. And you could also tell me in those comments what kind of webinars you want to see, or little 15-minute blurbs or whatever that you want to learn, because I love to teach. And when I do this stuff, I learn too, because I do a little bit of research and along with my knowledge, and put stuff like this together. So, all right, guys, I'm going to sign off, and I wish you guys a great rest of your night, and we'll talk again soon. Okay. Take care, guys.